My name's Faith, and this is my placement presentation video for Intro to Education. As soon as I went to the school from Bluff City Elementary School, I actually was able to witness a data analysis between the fifth graders who addressed each student's progress. They even discussed the test scores and what that meant for each student, and even told me how the RTI works and what levels work and how they have to keep up with each student and see where they need to be put into each RTI class. They also discussed each student's behavioral challenges and how that can also affect their test scores. It was very interesting to see how much teamwork went in with these teachers and how well they knew each student from that class to know what to do with those students. I got Miss Wallings as my teacher. I actually have never met her before until I went there. She's a new teacher. I got to witness how she engaged with the students, what she found works. She let me know like the different styles that each student learns. That's why she seats them at different places. Some work better in groups, some like to be alone. And then the kids were a little disruptive, but she did a really good job of managing their behavior. She told me that she tries to give them a little bit of independence so that they don't feel as pressured to um stay like contained, because that makes it worse apparently. But they actually did a little bit better seeing them like get up. They were able to get the pencil on their own, and they listened. And she told me how she manages her lesson plans and how based on their TCAP scores, that's when they know they need to work on something more extra, or they need to work with this student, or they need to better this and make it better for everybody in the class. I did see the difference in grade levels. The kindergartners through second grade, when they were in line, they were more organized. They listened very clearly. They were pretty quiet. The third to fifth grade, they did not like being told what to do. They didn't like to listen to simple instruction. They just were all over the place. So I did see a difference between those two groups. So I do have a feel for, I do think I want to teach younger kids more than I want to teach the older ones, just because I feel like um it's more of a hassle to deal with the third to fifth grade group for myself. The third and fifth graders are much taller than me, also, so I think that goes more into why I would like to teach kindergarten through second grade. I did see a lot of different learning styles from each of the students as I was sitting in the classroom. I realized there was some visual learners, there's auditory learners, the note takers, those ones had their notebooks out. They took notes on everything, even what the teacher said. There was some that preferred to work in groups, and there was some that just did not like that the other kids were talking. They found it disruptive. And there was one little boy, he kind of um, was struggling because kids were talking and he didn't like it. It just frustrated him more. He liked quiet, and I can understand that as a kid. I liked the quiet. I liked working alone. I did not like working in groups, but I also liked taking notes. So it was interesting to see how they actually um like they find different ways to incorporate all of those learning styles so that each student is definitely understanding the material. Recess was very important to see because that's when the teacher really got to tell me like how each student was doing based on things that either happened at home or they struggled with some students fighting each other. And the teachers are responsible to look after these students, so it was important for them to separate these kids, a group of kids that were going to beat each other up. One little girl fell off the swing, so the teacher had to take her up to the office. Um, she made sure that these group of kids were not fighting, making sure that they don't fight each other, and they had to make sure they took account for each child and make sure they didn't lose any. It was a lot of responsibility, especially because they were a bigger group and a bigger group of kids. So at lunchtime, I realized that the fifth grade teachers used this time to um, talk about what the students did in class, who is being disruptive, if they're getting any better, if they're improving. Um, they discuss their teaching strategies and how they find it useful, what wasn't useful. They talk about the stress that is bothering them, so they really support each other. And there was certain students that they felt gave them a lot of stress, but they talked it out and they talk about getting meetings with the students. It was really important that they had this time together to discuss all these things. In the special education classroom, it was much different. There was a smaller group of students. There was more teachers in the classroom. And they also talked about how students come into that classroom, how they uh, test out, they test in, how they get parents' meetings, how they meet with the parents, how the parents react, how they have to tell the parents, like, if their kid is not improving, what they think will help, if they need to talk to their doctor. A lot of things go with the special education classroom, even though there is less students. Each class had a different routine, so each grade level, the kindergartners, they go to the bathroom at a certain time. They know each student's schedule. They know when they need to take that student to the bathroom. They know what makes that student comfortable. Um, they know what they need to work on. They know what they don't need to work on. They know um, which class they need to be in at what time. And they have a short amount of time, so they work on what they can in that short amount of time, and then they get the next group. Um, the fifth grade class, the schedule was set, but it was like they had more time, so if they needed to go over something more, they had that opportunity to. In the special education classroom, they didn't have that chance really. They just kind of had to, um, like cram in what they can, and it was really stressful to see how much they have to cram in and how many teachers they need. Like they had to have like 3 just to help with that short amount of time to make sure each student was getting one-on-one time and to make sure that they were doing what they're supposed to, making sure they're having some behavioral improvement. It was a lot of work in the special education classroom than it was in the fifth grade class. There was two levels in special education. I did not know this. There's a lower education, that's where they work on basic skills, behavioral skills. It's where like the students definitely need the most work. And then there's a higher education, and that's refining specific skills. That's like if they're struggling with something in the regular classroom, they go into the higher education and they refine that skill and go over it. In the lower education, they go over basic skills like addition, um, simple words, spelling, writing, those sort of things. But they always switch out these kids. They can be switched out from the lower education room to the higher education depending on where they test. They have a evaluationist. She goes and she tests the kids to see which group they need to be in. And she said it's very important that they understand what they need to work on so they can improve those skills. My concluding thoughts is that the observation showed me teaching in a new way. I didn't know that there was so much teamwork involved. I thought it was more individualistic, like what you thought to do, what those teachers thought to do in their classroom. I didn't know they come together and they actually learn about every student, not just in their classroom, but in other classrooms as well. And I also learned about how much help they actually do to help the students succeed. And they are very patient people. I am a patient person, so I feel like I'm pretty good with that. Um, but it's a lot more patience in the special education classroom, and it's much harder than people think. Even though there's less students, it's more it's it's tough to really understand that, and they really have a hard time with the parents. That I started to understand. They were like, we will call their parents, they will ignore the situation, and then it's a whole thing. Their kid is disruptive again, the parent ignores it, and it's just a whole. As I've never gotten in trouble as a kid, but I feel like it's hard if the parents are just ignoring that behavior and not trying to address it, instead ignoring it and making it the school's problem. I understand that teaching is much more harder than I thought it would be, but I think I still want to go through with teaching. Um, it was very interesting to see those two things. I feel like this placement really puts in perspective how teaching really is, and especially if the teachers are really honest with you. They were very honest to say that teaching isn't hard, or teaching is hard, sorry. Teaching is really hard, and it's something that they don't prepare you for. Like, you can go through all these college courses, and they said you still go in that classroom, and it will be like something new that you weren't taught before. They said it's a lot more than it seems to be.